I'm often asked, how did I discover overages and how did I get started in the business? Well, I've been an attorney since 1995, focused on real estate, and I myself bought properties at foreclosure auctions, both tax and mortgage foreclosure, so very familiar with that process, and lots of clients who were involved in real estate development and involved in foreclosure sales. A new client came into my office, and his problem was that he'd lost a piece of land at a tax sale. He was a small developer and he wanted to see if I could get the piece of land back for him. And I said to him, if there's a technical problem with the sale, if they can't prove that they served you, if the math is wrong, if something's wrong with the file, it's pretty easy to overturn those sales. So let me do this. Let me go down to the courthouse, pull the file, I'll go through it, and I'll tell you if there's anything I think I can do. So I went down to the courthouse and I looked through the file and there was just nothing. I mean, he had been served with the papers, he had signed for certified mail notifying him of the sale and the amounts that were due. The math was all correct. There just wasn't a lot to do. So I called my client back in, this is a couple of weeks later, and I said, look, I went through the file and there's just nothing here. I said, you received notice of the sale, you did know about it, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, and you didn't pay the taxes, right? And he said, no. I said, you can pay me to do this work, to try, but I think the chance of success is very, very low. And I think I'm just gonna be wasting your money. I don't like wasting clients' money, so I think that's not a good idea. I said, but I have an idea. I said, I have to tell you, it's something new, never heard of it or done it, but I think I can make this work. I said, your property sold for about $12,000 more than you owed on it. And I think I can get you that money back. And he said, well, how? I've never even heard of that, because this was an experienced real estate guy. And I said, they don't need that extra $12,000 to pay the taxes or anything else. I said, so I think I can go get in front of a judge and just present the case and say, look, Your Honor, the county's collected all the money they're owed, plus penalties, plus interest, plus the cost of advertising and the sale. And I said, there's still $12,000 left over, and we would like that to be awarded to my client, who was the former owner of the property. And the reason I think that's right is because the county doesn't need the money to cover anything that they're owed. And the county isn't the one that bought the property, paid the mortgage on it, paid whatever, was for it, maintained it, cut the grass and all that. I said, so I think just as a matter of equity, which is part of the law, that I think there's a good chance of succeeding with this. So he said, all right, I'll try it. This sounds plausible. So I went down to the sheriff's office. This was all happening in the city of Philadelphia. I went down to the sheriff's office and I talked to them, and they looked at me like I had two heads. Like, never heard of such a thing. And I had to go back and forth with them, actually visited them a couple of times. And finally, I got them to give me a check. I got a $12,000 check because they saw the rationale to it also. They didn't need or deserve a windfall. They just needed the taxes paid. So I got them the check. And quite honestly, I didn't think anything further about that whole thing for a while, because I was just a practicing real estate attorney. And then a couple of years later, I met a new friend named Rick Dawson. And Rick was helping us invest in tax liens and tax deeds. Really good, smart guy. And he mentioned to me one day that he was doing this thing called overages. I said, oh, what's that? And he explained that's when property is sold at a tax sale, when there's money left over after the taxes and all are paid, then the former owner can get that money. And I said, I did one of those cases once, but what do you mean you're doing that as a business? Because to me, it was just another client that had come to the office where I thankfully solved the problem and it was successful. And he said, well, I get the lists. And I said, they're lists? And he said, yeah. List of what? He said, list of the monies they're holding. Really? He said, yeah. And I said, then what do you do? And he said, well, then I reach out and talk to the people. I said, how do you do that? He said, I just do something called skip tracing to find them. I said, oh, okay. And I said, then what do you do? He said, well, then I call them and tell them I could potentially get them some money if they want to hire me for a percentage. And I thought, that is brilliant, just for a percentage. And he said, what happens if it doesn't work out? And he said, it doesn't cost him anything. I cover it. He said, it doesn't cost me much. He said, it's really just making the effort of applying for the money. He said, it's not a big cost thing. And I thought, this is pure genius. So I actually hired Rick to show me how this business works. And that was back in 2011. And Rick, since then, interestingly enough, went off to become a lawyer, and now he's busy lawyering and investing in real estate. Really good guy. Anyway, I was really intrigued with this overages business because I thought, all these owners that I've met over the years who lost their houses, they're so sad, such sad cases. I thought, this is a way that I can help people who've lost their property get money back, get a fresh start in life, get something happy happen, just like get them mentally in good shape again. And so I started doing the business, and what the business is that I go and get the lists of monies that are owed, look up the people through skip tracing, reach out to them. When they say yes, I sign them up and go get the money for a percentage. Makes this really cool and amazing business. And I discovered it really by accident. Now, when I got into the business 2011, it took a couple of years to get my feet on the ground, like to figure out everything had been figured out. I had to do research in all 50 states to figure out how it works everywhere. We had to do cases, for things to go wrong, and then us figure out what do we have to do. I had to draft contracts and all that. So I did that, and eventually we went into teaching this business, and I went into teaching this business because I love it. I think it's such a meaningful business where you're helping someone who's so down and out. Our clients are just such sad cases. And we get the pleasure of helping them. And how are we helping them? Helping them get money that they desperately need because they just lost their house at a tax sale. And when you lose your house at a tax sale, you need to get into new housing. And that's the result of a long time of being poor and really being strapped for cash. So their car is broken down or needs work. They're just in really bad shape. So we get to help people in this business and we make a great living. And just between you and I, and don't broadcast this too loudly, we get to take money that the government is keeping and give it back to people that deserve it. Because one of the dirty secrets of this business is that if the person does not apply for the money in time by the deadline, then the money is lost to the government and it's lost forever. The government gets to keep it. So the government doesn't really say much. I mean, they'll give you the money back. If you ask for it, absolutely they'll give you a refund. But they don't make an effort to really go out and find someone, call them up, say, oh, we have money down here for you. Because if the person doesn't get the money, then the government gets to keep it and use it. So there's not a lot of incentive for them to do anything other than keep quiet, not say anything. And most of the money just stays with the government. And we're talking about a lot of money. There are literally hundreds of millions of dollars sitting out there waiting to be claimed, most of which will just be forfeited to the government. And every day they hold new tax sales. According to a study by JP Chase that they did a couple years back, they said 3,000 properties are sold at a tax sale every business day, plus or minus a few. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of properties. And I can tell you as a practitioner in this business, anything with a building on it, what we call an improved property in real estate, is gonna have an overage because the taxes that are due are not enough to be the value of the property because taxes are typically just 2% or less of the home value per year. And these places are sold when they're 3 or 4 years behind in tax sales. So when I discovered this business, I felt, to me, that I discovered the world's greatest business because I get to help people who really desperately need help. A lot of times they're very good people who have had medical problems, they've lost a spouse, they lost an income earner, really sad cases. And we get to come and show up with usually tens of thousands of dollars for them, which really tremendously helps them out, helps them get a fresh start in life. Part of it's just a mental thing that something good happens for them. A stranger calls them up and something good happens. Now, I know you're probably really intrigued by this and you may be thinking, wait a minute, how do you get them to even believe you? And that is part of the art of the business. And it's a matter of talking to them, being nice to them. Of course, in our course, we have a sales script that just guides you through that conversation. But for the purpose of today, I'll tell you, you just want to be nice to them and talk to them and be patient with them. They've really been through it, so you got to be patient with them. And it takes a few conversations to get them signed up because they got to get used to this idea and then they'll sign up. So that's one. The other thing people often ask me, well, what about mortgages? Well, just to start with, most properties that go to tax sale are free and clear. The reason for that is that if a property's mortgaged, the mortgage company tries to keep an eye on the taxes, and if they're not paid, they pay the taxes. The reason that they do that is that the mortgage is stripped away from the property by tax sale, meaning the mortgage is no longer a lien on the real estate after the tax sale. So mortgage companies are really careful that they don't get their lien stripped away from the property. So if the taxes aren't paid, they'll pay them. Now then, of course, they'll try to get that money from the borrower, they'll foreclose if they have to, but most of the properties are gonna be free and clear. For the ones that aren't free and clear, pretty easy to deal with mortgages. Usually we end up with half of it. That's too far beyond the scope of this video, but if you have questions about that, put them in the Q&A and in the future I'll pick up and do a video on that. So that's, in short, the story of how I got involved with the Overages business. New client came in, needed help with the tax sale. I helped him, got him some money, and then just by happenstance, good luck, a couple years later, I found out how another friend had made this into a business, and I absolutely said, I have to take this on because I'm a guy that likes to help people and I like to make a lot of money, and this is the perfect marriage of those two things. So that's my story. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. This is attorney Bob Diamond, over and out for now.